the causes of humanitarian suffering have been growing. Conflict and the failure of the geopolitical system to manage conflict very well, climate change impacting as it does on the, worst of all on the most vulnerable countries, and then COVID. And, the positive thing I would say is humanitarian agencies do a good job. For the responses I've been coordinating, we reach 100 million people a year. We certainly save millions of lives every year. I think we've been working very hard to try to make the system better. There is a bit of pushing water uphill, and you have to confront a lot of extreme human misery and very sometimes atrocious behavior. The humanitarian system is basically very effective at staving off the very worst, despite the compounding of the causes that we're dealing with and the failure of the leading powers to do enough to tackle those causes. It really, I spent a lot of time warning of problems. Famine in Yemen just around the corner, staving off famine in South Sudan, the atrocious things we've seen in the Sahel and the Lake Chad Basin. I've had to do that in the most extreme circumstances, probably in terms of famine and the danger of large-scale loss of life in Tigray, just at the end of my tenure. I have to tell you, I never expected, again in Ethiopia, to see what we've seen in recent months. The reason why we've had this explosion of need in recent years is because the causes of humanitarian need have been compounded, have accumulated. Conflict, the failure to prevent and resolve conflict, that is really a commentary on the state of global geopolitics, as well as on the emergence of these extremist groups and other non-state groups. Climate change, where the biggest storms and the worst droughts and the most disruption, the fastest rise in the temperature in a way which is detrimental to human livelihoods, are in places typically where we've already got humanitarian problems and deep poverty and poor governance and corruption and violence and all the rest of it. And then disease, I have had to deal with far too many disease outbreaks. Worst of all has been the pandemic. I'm afraid until the world resumes its journey of improvement for people and countries at the bottom of the pile, we shouldn't expect humanitarian needs to fall. That's one of the reasons why I think the world is making a big mistake in not acting much more aggressively and generously in protecting the poorest countries coming out of the pandemic, both in terms of much more support for them faster to get access to vaccines, but also in terms of support to them for their economies, which are under huge strain as a result of the pandemic.